Hello, everyone. I think we're live, so welcome to the final PASA Alumni on air of the school year. My name is Alex Satoshi, and I currently serve as the Alumni Relations Chair for the PASA Network Student Organization. Additionally, I do serve as the Alumni Engagement and Career Services Intern for the Rossier School of Education, hence this partnership. If you're tuning in live, we're really happy to have you here. Feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat feature, which should appear to the right of this video screen, and I'll be sure to bring them up to our panelists today. I do want to remind everyone that these broadcasts will become YouTube videos after the event is over. So if any classmates who couldn't make it, or if you can't stay for the whole time, feel free to watch or listen to them online at your own convenience. Today, our final Alumni on Air session is titled Supporting Underrepresented Students, and it features a PASA alum, Siobhán Byrne. After a brief introduction, I'll start asking the questions that you all submitted for her, and the live participants can submit as well. So let's go ahead and get an intro from our panelists, including where they currently work, what they do, and what they were involved with during their time in PASA. So Siobhán.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me. Currently I work at Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri, a little different than LA. But I'm actually the coordinator for apartment living here. I oversee 2 apartment buildings. One, we just had a new renovation when I started here, so that was really fun to take part in. As far as kind of my journey into student affairs, really came after kind of what you would say like the traditional, started out as an RA and kind of wanted to see where that went. At Sonoma State University, I was a CSA, and our last semester, senior year, one of my colleagues said she heard that there was this thing called Student Affairs and that there was going to be a Student Affairs conference at UC Santa Cruz. Come to find out, we went to that and I was all jazzed. The person who put it on worked at UC Santa Cruz at the time, and little did I know he ended up being the PASA president, Zach Helsper, and so pretty much got me into understanding that it was a career that I could do full time, and that's where I've been. It's been all over the place. I do focus on LGBT work. I've been able to start focusing more specifically on social justice as action, cultural competency, and then educating others on what that means for them and where they are in their learning capacities. And it's just been a journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. So now we'll get into the questions that PASA students have submitted. So first, if you can just talk a little bit about where your passion for working to support underrepresented or marginalized students came from, and how, if at all, you cultivated that during your time as a PASA student.
Yeah, definitely. In getting the questions beforehand, I really looked over that and I was like, I don't remember when it happened. I just always knew that the way I saw discrimination and prejudice show up, it was always pointed to one specific type of group, pretty much our marginalized community members. And just going from there, seeing how systemically it was put upon folks, and what that looked like in undergrad, and how I took part in different activities, different even jobs that had nothing to do with residence life or student affairs. And then, and definitely working as far as being in PASA, working and doing some research. When I started my first semester with PASA, I also started the Educators for Career Alliance group and wanted to make sure that we were doing something with that. And so research really just became something for me that, okay, well, people understand numbers, people understand data. They don't really understand when someone tells them their truth, that's whatever that action is they're not doing, or they're doing to them, it's not okay. So I thought, okay, well, let's go ahead and, speak to administrators or speak to those in power with this data and this research that we can do. So the first piece was looking at LGBT-focused curriculum, or a lack thereof, within the Rossier school itself, not just on the PASA, at least focusing on PASA classes. And we found that, as you've probably seen in some of your research that you all are already doing, that people are afraid of things they don't know. So a lot of folks in different classes all over through Rossi is like, oh, I hadn't actually taken a class that had LGBT curriculum. So as far as me being able to teach or work with or support or provide resources to someone who identifies that way, I have no idea how to do that. So that's kind of where we got some of our action items to create brown bag events and just other types of educational pieces. At that same time, I was also working at the LGBT Resource Center in my graduate assistantship. I did that for my first semester. And so I was able to work with folks in that graduate assistantship as well. But really, aside from that, it's just always been something that I have wanted to do and done. And working more, and this has been since college, really since undergrad, and really understanding and being someone who is both Irish and Chicana, to understand that showing up as white, that means certain things. And so how I can take up space and wanting to make sure that I'm being utilized as a tool and a resource and not taking up space. That's been a very big part of my process as well. And I think definitely working with students when they come and talk to you, or in my experience, talking to me, that I want to make sure that I'm really listening to them. And even though I was a psychology undergrad, really taking into consideration what I learned in my student services and introduction to counseling course, and being able to see, okay, how as an administrator can I, have active listening, but also understand how am I helping the student within the confines of what the university structure looks like,
Right.
and then providing the resources that I have access to for them. So it's been a huge process, and I'm still processing how to do that. But I know a lot of my coursework, as well as stuff that I've done outside of PASA, really helped frame how I've gone from here. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It was cool to hear about your involvement during PASA, as many of us are still in it. So going off of the last part you said about, the restrictions of the university and what you can do, what are some of the challenges that you face with your work? And after explaining those, what have you learned from them or can pass along to us who are starting our careers?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think one big piece is really to know the mission, vision, and values of your university. That's a huge, huge tool for all of us. Whether you think that you have power in the university or not, if you feel like, well, I'm just a grad assistant, or you're like, oh, I'm the president of the university, whatever it is, you need to know, what guides the university, and then also understanding budget. You need to know what they're spending money on. It's a really big thing. So in understanding that, you can, well, at least I have seen challenges as always coming in two pieces for me, which has been really interesting in reflecting upon that. One piece is usually the no, stop, you can't do that. And the other piece is like, well, actually, here's how this is going to be successful. And they've always come that way. Some more stressful times than others, like last minute, here's how we're going to do this. But I think one piece is that you can have it where you and your colleagues are sitting around and everyone's like, yes, we're going to go ahead and do this. This is great. But there's no funding and you're all overworked, which is kind of typical from where budgets are.
Yeah.
The other piece can be, the university itself is talking about systemic oppression and how marginalized bodies are continually under this, pretty much this physiological barrage of what's going on. And you could really point to our current, political state right now, and how decisions have made people not be safe, and how long that has been going on,
Right.
and then being able to see, okay, well, we're talking about this, we don't necessarily know how to do it, but we do have money. So if you want to take everything on all by your lonesome, you can do it. So those pieces have really shown me not just how to, I wouldn't say not necessarily how to delegate, but who you can see you want to partner with and who has access in time. Maybe you at the time don't have a supervisor who will be helpful for you in that endeavor, but you have a campus partner who's like, you know what, I actually have a space already reserved, and I have a way that I can do any type of paperwork that needs to go along. If you will just make the flyers Flyers don't take that long. You can do that within your lunch hour even and still eat lunch, because we got to talk about wellness too.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Right. But that's really a way that you can take part in that. And then also thinking about how you're doing with, your own wellness, right? Because sometimes those physiological pressures are being put on to us. We're actually the ones that are sitting in the office crying with our students and having to deal with what's going on. And so thinking, right now I can't do this, but here's something that I can do. So really being honest with yourself and reaching out again to folks and family, and definitely colleagues when you make those partnerships, reaching out. They don't have to be at your same institution. They can be, across the nation, or even they're, working at, USC in the China campus. So being able to partner with them, seeing what else they're doing. And there is no shame in being able to kind of piggyback or borrow, because if it works, we don't need to redo it. We can just keep making it go along. And we've all seen, my culture is not a costume. Those have been gone like nationwide. And so no one's really redone that. We've just figured out ways that we can re-promote it on our campuses. So a lot of those things, then just get rid of the, no, we can't do that. No, we don't have a budget, to, well, actually it's already done and I printed it out and we're fine.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that great advice and insight. So going off, why don't we just talk about the wellness part now? So one question that was submitted was asking exactly that. Knowing the nature of this work is very oftentimes stressful. How do you take the time for self-care and managing that into your responsibilities?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, easier said than done, always.
Right.
And I think one key piece for me personally has just been to, and I've told my students this, I've told friends this, is that you really need to let yourself be okay when you don't take care of yourself, because we can be our own worst critics, and then we just exacerbate that situation, right? We just make it worse and worse. So that for me is first and foremost. I know people talk about work-life balance and how that works and doesn't work. So really, I think that you can use that as a concept and a guide, that's fine, but that's not the end all be all. Sometimes you're working 12-hour days, but you don't have to work on the weekend, right? So you sleep all day in Netflix. Great, that's wellness. And then other times, like, as I was trying to think about the question, I was like, oh, I started painting. I was like, really? That was for a week, and then I stopped. So I don't want to say it's been continual, but I did start painting, which has been something that's therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
So that has been helpful, and I love going outdoors. Just found a new hiking place. That's been really great. And then definitely being able to eat. I love food. That's not always been the easiest piece. Sometimes we don't have a lot of money to go out, especially when we have expensive taste.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been just some things that I go back and forth with, and making sure that I do take the time, and when I don't put myself down for not doing that. I just recognize it and then figure out, okay, well, how am I going to move on? Is there time later on that maybe instead of going to lunch, maybe just sleep and then take a little nap, and that's good enough. Or even playing, Candy Crush on your phone or whatever. That's still wellness. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that piece. Thank you for sharing that. So moving on to the next question, there was another question brought up of how can PASA students get experience in these roles supporting underrepresented or marginalized students when those formal opportunities are really hard to come by? And what advice or insight do you have to share to those students asking?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, y'all are in Los Angeles. There is so many volunteer opportunities, nonprofits. It doesn't have to be formal. I think that we think on the resume it's formal, it's going to be best, what's going to give us that job. Volunteerism is huge. That's a huge thing. There are at other institutions awards that staff members get for their time in volunteering off campus. So that's a huge thing. You can also even think if you're going to be somebody who travels a lot, if you're going to be in admissions as an example, are there ways that you can have, not necessarily like a layover if you're flying, but if you're driving, is there a way that you can have time in between to, okay, well, I'm going to help out with the shelter real quick, and just bagging up whatever it is. And so as far as your work and interest in Title IX opportunities, that's going to be a lot more helpful because you're going to have hands-on experience. In other opportunities, in working for myself, I think it was I had to build a curriculum in one of my classes, and working with the one National Gay and Lesbian Archives and seeing what else I could do and partnering with them, trying to figure out how to create that. So in a class, I had to do a project, and from that project, I had to do research, and then I made, kind of this networking opportunity for myself. So
Awesome.
those kinds of things can come sometimes out of nowhere and you don't expect it. But definitely, I don't know what it's called, like volunteer.com. I don't know, but it's an online source that you literally put in your location and you find different ways. I know that USC has volunteering opportunities. One other thing that I did is it wasn't really an internship or even an assistantship. It was just volunteering with a group on campus and just being able to help out with them, even if it was setting up chairs, but at least it got me to see some different opportunities. And if I did want to go more into event planning and a larger scale events for maybe town and gown relations or what have you on college campus, that gave me more insight into that. Maybe not necessarily something I want to do, but that wasn't anything that I had to do with really anything residence life wise or in rec sports or really anything. So that was actually just a great opportunity I took upon myself. Now, with that being said, some of us can't do some of those things because we have to have jobs, right, to pay for grad school. So in that, if you can partner with some of your PASA cohort and see, hey, what are you doing? Do you need volunteers for this? Because one, it's on campus, it's right after class. I've already parked, I don't want to find new parking, and then just being able to do that. So trying to figure out ways you can, not necessarily like task manage, but it does take a little bit of that. And you only have, some of us only have 2 short years, but sometimes it does allow us to get as much as possible in there as we can.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you for that. I'll be sure to pass that along. So that actually concludes our formal question and answer portion for today. I don't see any live chat questions. So do you have any final thoughts, anything that you wanted to add that I might have skipped over?
I don't think so. I think really the big kind of takeaway is to continue for everyone to do things like this, reach out to alum. One huge piece of USC is the Trojan family. So there are people out there doing stuff. You have great, amazing professors. Oh my gosh, these people are world renowned. So yeah, right? Like, get those partnerships and make those connections. And then also location wise, LA is so huge. And so if you need to work together, with PASA Network and seeing, okay, is there ways that we can go to different campuses and even just see what it is that they're doing and reach out again to folks who have worked at USC to say, hey, can we come to your campus? Because most likely they're going to say, yes, oh my gosh, come on over. So you can get that experience that way.
Yeah, we actually just started doing a UCLA USC kind of mixer with their student affairs program. So we went there this semester. So that was really cool and something I think that can continue to grow. So thank you so much for everyone who tuned in to watch Now or Later and for submitting questions beforehand for our panelists. Siobhán, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy workday schedule to share a little bit of insight with us current PASA students. We really appreciate it. And I know everyone watching or listening Now or Later loved learning from you. So thanks again for everyone for tuning into the series over the course of the year. Have a great rest of your day and fight on.
Fight on.